but he's got to go up against Mech Mage first, which is, sort of a matchup where I still feel like that the favored side of this is the Mech Mage. I think the pressure is too much coupled with the reach it has at the end game. And we actually see that Lothar here has got a counter spell in his opening hand, and it looks to me like Xixo is playing sort of the my mind is gone completely blank right now.
The Silent Storm Demon Lock deck?
Yeah, Demon Lock. We saw, Just Saying had played a version of this very recently to that ESL event where Silent Storm actually won with this deck, and he just trounced everyone with it, and just, it's not a big mystery why. You look at an opening hand like this, it helps dismantle aggro decks. So this isn't like a traditional sort of Warlock matchup where it's like Handlock or Zoo versus Mech Mage. This is something that we've been seeing a lot more of recently, and something just like a turn 1 Voidwalker into a turn 2 Nerubian Egg can really present some problems going forward. So seeing how Xixo chooses to approach this matchup is going to be interesting, as well as the way that Lothar chooses to navigate around this, because again, it's a fairly new strategy, so not a ton of practice I think can be had against a deck like this.
Yeah, I'm sure when Lothar was on the ladder or he was practicing with his teammates, he probably did not expect to see a lot of this Demon Lock deck, and he probably doesn't have a lot of experience with it right now.
Wow, look at that look from Lothar too. It's like what you see all the time in Texas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't tell. Like, is he an American now?
It doesn't even really look like Lothar. It just looks like a completely different person. He's wearing a tank. He's got his sweet tattoo shot. Look at that mustache too.
Yeah, he's wearing a 10-gallon hat.
That's not quite a 10-gallon hat. It looks pretty sweet though.
All right, I'm gonna defer to you, the native Texan here, for whether that is indeed a 10-gallon hat.
10-gallon hats are like the huge ones you see that have the giant brims that extend out.
So is this more like a gardening hat?
It does. It's got the same kind of style as a gardening hat might have, but wow, Xixo rolls a 2 on Implosion. I don't think I've ever seen that before.
Yeah, Xixo is like, or Implosion is the Xixo card. He is the player that used it before pretty much anyone else, and he used it in his Zoolock that he gets to #1 legend with every single season. Fortunately, he rolls a 2, which is the absolute worst pick the worst roll that you can roll by a significantly large margin. I mean, rolling a 3 and summoning 3 1/1 demons, that's like almost twice as good as rolling a 2 and summoning 2 1/1 demons. It's just the RNG with that card.
Yeah, it's a 50% increase from what it is. The average is going to be 3 imps and 3 damage. And so when you get 4, you're rewarded a lot, and when you get 2, you're a little bit punished for it. I actually still kind of like it because it does adjust the circumstances that players have to play under. Like, you can't just jam it out there and expect it to kill 3 health minions all the time. You are sometimes going to be punished for that. So happy to see that. I really like Lothar's play here too. He doesn't really have a mech to go along with his Goblin Blast Mage, but he's chosen to develop it anyway. He just wants a 5/4 body on the board and going forward from there. But this Demon Lock deck, I mean, this is the kind of plays that it's looking to punish. It's looking to punish mid-range style stuff like this, as well as reckless early aggression. So where you're going to see a lot of win rate against a deck like Demon Lock is in extended game plans that are able to stabilize and put a lot of heavy pressure on the higher end mana cards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually did an interview with Silent Storm recently, and I asked him, how did you end up actually building this deck? And his answer was, I was just playing Demon Lock on ladder, just like standard variations of Demon Lock, but I began losing to a lot of like Phase Hunters and Mech Mages, and in order to game the ladder, I just took out all the big cards, threw in like Mistress of Pain, Boardwalkers, and then my matchup against these aggro decks increased, they just skyrocketed. And a line of thinking was, if I just win against these aggro decks, then I'll have a high win percentage on the ladder. And I feel like because the Conquest format mirrors the ladder format a lot more, then this deck is also going to be a good pick going into Conquest.
Yeah, I would definitely tend to think so too. It's such a good idea when you think about it just from that aspect. It's putting a lot of pressure on aggro decks, so you can, in Conquest it's way different. Like in old format, Last Hero Standing, this deck I don't think would have been very good because it would have done a good job at dismantling aggro decks. But against people that had like heavy control lineups, if your Demon Lock got picked off, that was it. It wasn't going to beat their aggro deck after that. It was locked. But in this format, it's not the same case. If you lose to a control deck with this, it's okay. You can just play it again.
Now, it's funny that Mech Mage, it has 2 minions on board right now, but actually no mechs to activate either the Tinkertown Technician or the Goblin Blast Mage. Goblin Blast Mage is generally like one of the best cards that Mage can get. It's a 5/4 body for 4 mana, plus it has like just an awesome effect. It has like super arcane missiles basically, so That's almost like 5 or 6 mana worth of stuff in one card for 4 mana.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it does have a condition. You need a mech on the field, and Lothar is he's going to be desperately trying to get that mech on the field. Unfortunately, he only has 1 mech in his hand right now. So if he uses the spider tank and plays it, and it gets killed, then next turn it might come to the same problem. He still won't be able to play the Goblin Blast Mage. So I think with this play, what he's saying is, I really want to get that Blast Mage out there, so I'm gonna actually save my spider tank.
Yeah, I think I like saving the spider tank here too. It also allows him to get the Tinkertown Technicians active if he's able to protect that singular mech he has. So I would tend to favor this play as well. Xixo, it looks like he's going to go for another Defender of Argus play. He also had options to use Hellfire on this turn. He could have run his 1/1 into Lothar and use Hellfire to clear and put a 4/4 on his side of the board. But I think this is actually going to give him a little bit more leverage the long game. And I think it's what he's going for.
Xixo's drawn both Nerubian Eggs, and we're just seeing the power of Nerubian Eggs in this matchup. Nerubian Egg is basically like kind of like a 4/6 almost if you draw them so early and you have the activators, especially against Mech Mage, which in other classes might be able to ignore their Nerubian Egg for a longer while they draw their silences. But Mech Mage, they have to be aggressive and they just have to go for face. So they have to pop the egg as soon as possible, really.
Really tough stuff here from Lothar. Not a lot of good plays available to him. I imagine it's going to be Piloted Shredder and a Tinkertown Technician. And he actually might just choose to not attack here, which I don't mind so much. Again, just because he doesn't want to activate a 5 or a 4/4 and have no way to deal with it and just let it, kind of trade freely. Know what's happening here. So I can definitely see a no attack here. And actually, I would tend to favor that.
He's going to be really weak to Power Overwhelming plus Shadow Flame, but I'm not sure if he can afford to play around that right now.
Yes, this is going to be Hellfire turn. This is a really strong Hellfire turn. He's even got Implosion to follow this up, so really big turns, and that is going to die no matter what to an Implosion. And this one rolls a 4. That's more 6-0 that you expect.
Well, to be fair, this is the average of 2 implosions was a 3/3, so this is pretty much the like standard RNG for 6-0 right now. Fortunately, Lothar has the best counter in Mech Mage for the implosion, which is the Goblin Blast Mage. So I think we're definitely going to be seeing that card come down right now.
I think you're going to see Clockwork Gnome, Goblin Blast Mage, and Tinkertown Technician.
Yeah, you wanna be able to get your mechs on the board and activate your mech cards as soon as possible. That Tinkertown and the Blast Mage have both gotten these cool yellow borders, so
a little bit of one of these pokes did not go exactly how Lothar wanted it to, so we're going to be left with a 1/1. And so now he's going to debate whether or not he should ping this 1/1 or play the Tinkertown Technician, and I would still tend to favor playing Tinkertown, I think.
Lothar must be considering that he really doesn't have many cards in his hand right now, and he's kind of running out of steam, so he might be thinking that weaving in pings might be the better alternative.
It's certainly what he's thinking. The other thing I think he might be thinking about is whether or not he should cloak this, because if he chooses to ping here, I think he should be cloaking this 5/4. And so this is going to allow him not only to attack with it, but it's also, he's got Time Rewinder in his hand too, so he could potentially get some more value from this. And having the 2/1 on the board uncontested means it's going to challenge this 4/3 next turn. So trading some life total for it, but not the biggest deal in the world. Like, this Warlock deck, it has some reach, but it really needs minions on the board first to get its reach.
Mal'Ganis could be a play, but I like this a little better, just fishing out some more cards. You're not really too afraid of dying. I mean, if your opponent has 2 fireballs in hand, then what can you really do about that, right?
Well, Fireball, Frostbolt. Did that Dark Realm just go to face? Oh.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, it looked like that for a while, right?
I was like, what on earth? Archmage Antonidas gets drawn. That's not going to get played this turn, though, because he's got 2 cogs in his hand that cost 6 mana because of Lothar. So when he draws Archmage here, I feel like his game plan has just been drastically altered. I feel like he's going to favor trading here.
Oh, yeah. If you draw the Archmage and you have a finicky cloak field in your hand, that means you can pretty much get guaranteed at least 3 fireballs, I would have to say. And that just means you can probably just fireball your opponent's face all day and definitely play out that long game. Mech Mage is a deck that it kind of runs out of steam usually, but that Archmage Antonidas just is equivalent to like 12 or 13 mana worth of minions, or worth of spells even.
Archmage and Dr. Moon, where it's big refill cards. So definitely going to trade here. Ping to the face. And so Xixo, not looking in the best shape anymore. Oh my gosh, he is so close to lethal with that draw. You know, had he Dark Bomb face. Just saying.
Oh man, what a play.
I'm curious if he's thinking about using Shadow Flame this turn or if he's really concerned about double Fireball. And I don't think he's concerned about double fire. He knows there's 3 spare parts in his opponent's hand, so he's not going to be too concerned with double Fireball. And I think the one thing he doesn't want to see right now is quite literally exactly what Lothar has.
I wonder
if if Archmage Antonidas is put down with a Finicky Clofield next turn, and he saves one of his Power Overwhelmings, he can actually clear the Archmage. But no, he goes for this play, puts him on a few draws that he can lethal his opponent with.
Yeah, I actually like this a lot because he's got the anti-Keelbot in his hand. So if his opponent's got a little bit of extra pressure this turn, Xixo's got a few draws to do something about it. And then also he does have lethal draws. Like we don't know exactly how many copies of Hellfire he's going to be running. So there's a potential one of those left. There's at least one Dark Bomb left. And then when he's running something like 2 Power Overwhelming, Xixo is a player who likes to be aggressive. So it wouldn't have surprised me to see some sort of extra reach in that he could couple with Power Overwhelming. And this is just, again, this is exactly what I think what Xixo did not want to see, is Archmage Antonidas and 2 spare parts.
Yeah, so what this means is Xixo, oh man, that's not a good draw. He now has to consider, does he tap to try to get lethal, or does he just play Mal'Ganis right now?
I think Mal'Ganis is probably going to be his best play, just because it's going to force a Fireball and a ping onto that. But, you know, that's not the best situation you can be in. Oh, he's going to go for Life Tap here, and that's actually going to, I mean, that just sealed the game. He can heal himself up to 19, but with the 6 points of damage attacking from Archmage Antonidas, Lothar's going to pick up this first game. So Archmage doing some work to carry, and you can see Lothar, he is super happy about that one. I mean, after that start and the way the mid game went, without Archmage Antonidas, I think he actually would have been in some dire straits.
Oh, definitely.
But
just about that last Mal'Ganis play, I believe like if he played Mal'Ganis, he would have been in a very similar situation in the next turn, where he would have to draw, pretty much tap or draw for lethal again. And in that scenario, if his opponent actually got him down to something like 2 or 3 HP, if he got him down to 2 HP, he wouldn't be able to tap. And if he got him down to 3 HP, he wouldn't have been able to Hellfire for lethal. So I kind of like that play, just to tap for lethal on that turn instead of delaying the game essentially for one more turn, where he probably almost certainly would have been in a worse position the following turn.
I can see the reason why doing that, but I still like playing the Mal'Ganis anyway, because if Hellfire is going to be lethal that turn, but you do get an extra draw step if you play it the other way. And it does also give Lothar the potential to, you know, maybe make a small mistake with something. Like say he drew something he would rather play than just a Fireball, and chose to, you know, go along with his Archmage Antonidas. It would have given Xixo a chance to draw a Hellfire for lethal. And if it doesn't draw Hellfire for lethal, it's still going to draw the game after that. So you're going to get a tie on that one, and then that game is effectively 0-0 still, as far as the score is concerned. Where Dark Bomb is still also lethal after that. So I would have actually liked to see him play Mal'Ganis and go forward from there. But he's choosing to go for Hellfire being lethal, and that's totally understandable as well. That's if he has another Hellfire in his deck.
Of course. We obviously don't know the exact list of the players, so we're just speculating based on what previous players have played, and what Xixo has played in previous tournaments.
Yeah, so Xixo falling behind by 1 game. Lothar, this is Conquest, by the way, so players have to win 1 game with each one of their decks. It's not the last hero standing format where the winning player stays with theirs. So Lothar's got his mage locked right now, and he's got his 2 remaining classes left. He's got Druid and Rogue, and Xixo still has availability to that Warlock deck that he just lost with. He has Rogue, Druid, and Warlock now. So what do you think he goes with when he's facing Druid and Rogue left? Which one of his decks do you think is going to line up best against that? It looks to me like it's going to be Warlock still.
I think the problem with Warlock is that I think the best out of all the decks that Lothar has, which are Mage, Druid, and Rogue, I believe Mage is the best matchup for Warlock. I was talking to Silent Storm again. He was saying, yeah, Rogue is probably a bad matchup. Druid is actually not too great of a matchup, even though Silent Storm like 5-0'd against Druid at ESL. And against aggressive decks, that's what this deck is really tailored against. So Xixo, he pretty much lost the best matchup for his Warlock. So he's going to have to somehow come back with unfavorable matchup against Rogue and against Druid.
If that's the case, I still would like to see him go with Warlock here, just to try to get a little bit more information about what his opponents are playing. It's funny that now his opening hand looks more like a Zoo deck than it does the other one. But a lot of these cards are similar in their style. And Lothar's, he's got Antique Healbot in this Rogue deck too, so a nod to the aggressive decks. He wants to be targeting them as well. And I can't blame anyone. Face Hunter is just so strong right now that I would, if you're playing a deck, I think if you're playing a lineup, you need to have multiple matchups that can face off good against Hunter.
Yeah, in the Conquest format, you pretty much have to have all your decks give somewhat of a nod to aggressive decks. Back when Last Hero Standing was the dominant the dominant format, you could pretty much have one deck that was just exclusively used to snipe aggro decks, and you could have another deck that was just exclusively used to snipe control decks. So I feel like, yeah, again, Conquest, it's a nice format because it brings the tournament experience slightly closer to the ladder experience.
It also gives you closer matchups too. That's the thing I like about it most. You're not seeing quite as many blowouts. Like even when you see someone get 3-0'd, the 3-0s you saw in last year's standing were like blowout 3-0s. And the 3-0s you're seeing in this format, it's just they seem like they're always being close games. Then that could be because of multiple reasons though. It's not necessarily just because the games are being closer. It could just be because the skill edge between these professionals is also getting smaller and smaller as they're all practicing more and getting better. That's definitely a factor that you can weigh into it too. Sprint and Tinker Oil in the opening hand for Lothar, so no action really. And Xixo's hand is looking pretty darn good.
Yeah, I think Tinker's Oil is like pretty much the last card you want to see in the Rogue hand. At least Sprint, if you prep it, it can get a lot of good value early on. But Tinker Oil is kind of more like a finishing card. It's like almost like the equivalent of Leroy Jenkins in previous Miracle Rogue decks.
There's going to be some life taps for a little bit. I can definitely see coining out Voidwalker next turn, but I can also see another life tap. Potentially being there, just depending on what Lothar chooses to do. He's actually just going to play this 3-3, so no value for Earthen Ring Farseer, but he just wants to get something on the board and move forward. This is going to be Implosion for sure. That was a great draw.
Now, what is the roll? 3?
It's a 3, right? So
I'll take that. So, so far, Implosion rolls have been exactly average. We've had a 2, a 4, and now a 3.
Huh. The random has been average. That's weird. It's almost like random is usually average.
Oh man, law of large numbers, right?
Oh, that's strange. My rolls are always so much better than average, though. So if I'm on that end of the good luck, someone's got to be on the end of the bad luck.
That's me, unfortunately. All right, so maybe probably a poke into one of these demons. Like it, Rogue so oftentimes on this turn has Fan of Knives, but unfortunately Lothar just doesn't have the exact card that he needs, so he'll have to deal with these one by one.
He does. This isn't like the cleanest Blood Mage turn because he knows that Xixo's deck is going to be playing 2 copies of Mortal Coil, so Blood Mage really susceptible to that, and he doesn't want to lose his board position too quickly. Again, he doesn't have any AOE, so without having Blood Mage next turn, it's going to be a lot harder for him to activate his dagger, but I think he just needs to pick up cards right now. So even if this gets Mortal Coiled, I don't think it's like the worst thing in the world, even though that's basically the worst case scenario for him, I think, moving forward. But yeah, it's for sure. And SI7 Agent is this is sort of like in the same line as something like Blood Mage though, where there's also 2 copies of Dark Bomb in here. So it's kind of like a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. Like both of the plays he make are equally threatened by the range from Xixo.
Yeah, the Blood Mage is a 2-mana minion that gets traded off essentially for 1 mana of the Mortal Coil. The SI Agent is a 3-mana minion that gets traded off by a 2-mana spell with a Dark Bomb. So either way, he has the potential to lose 1 mana in tempo.
Now that being said, there is something to be spoken of the value of saving the spell power from Blood Mage. So Xixo just going to taunt up both of his 2/2s here, and now Fan of Knives would be a fantastic draw. It doesn't pick it up. Blade Flurry would have been pretty good as well. But this is going to kind of produce the same kind of results for Xixo now. He's keeping his Dark Bombs, what I imagine are for really big tempo plays sort of in the mid-game, or maybe even for reach later on. But when this SI7 Agent runs into one of these 2/2s, he's still going to have access to Mortal Coil afterwards. His mana is going to be really good after that too, because he's got Mortal Coil and Voidwalker after that turn. And Voidwalker is one of those minions that, like, you don't want to kill it. It's like you will have to kill it because it eventually is a threat, but it's not something that you want to actively have to deal with.
Yeah, right now we see 2 sprints drawn from Lothar right now, which is exactly what you don't want. There's just so many good draws for Lothar in the coming turns, but he's just not getting them. 2 sprints in your hand, you really want like something like a prep or a sprint or even a Fan of Knives. All of them would have been so great right now. And we can see Lothar shaking his head. he has really not too much of a clue of what to do.
There's no really strong plays. I mean, this is basically one of the stronger plays he has. Something else that he was thinking of that we might not have mentioned with the Blood Mage is that if his opponent had Defender of Argus, he would have taken out the Blood Mage and still gotten development on the board. And I think that's something else he was trying to avoid. So Mortal Coil is going to be the lead. I imagine this is almost certainly going to be Void Caller. Yep, and then Blood Mage is going to bite the dust here. Oh, there's Fan of Knives. That's way too late at this point.
Yeah, quite a few turns too late. Violet Teacher is usually also a very good one, but probably not too much on this turn.
This just looks like an Azure Drake turn to me.
Yeah. If you throw down Violet Teacher, you usually want to combo it with some spells to get a bit more value out of it. Just playing it as a 3/5 just feels so bad as a rogue player when it has just so much more potential.
And Violet Teacher's not good at playing from behind, that's for sure. I think
Lothar's hovering over Fan of Knives.
Yeah, I think he just needs options at this point.
Okay, if he actually goes for Violet Teacher here. Okay.
So if he goes for Violet Teacher, he does clear off the Defender of Argus. So Xixo would have to have something to trade up here, but he's got multiple ways to do it.
Abusive Sergeant is going to go down, and that's even more pressure on the board. I like the Lothar now because it locks Lothar out of the sprint turn.
Also locks him out of Fan of Knives.
Locks him out of everything.
Yep. This is a really good setup for him. Eviscerate's not a bad draw right now, though. So yeah, as you can see, he doesn't take out his Void Caller in fear of what could be spawned from him. If a Mal'Ganis or a Jaraxxus hit the board from this, it's a lot of pressure. Even something like Doomguard.
All right, not too many clean ways to kill off this Azure Drake, though. So that's at least something Lothar has going for him. Do you want to do you actually want to keep this Void Caller alive just to put more pressure on your opponent?
I don't think so. I think you want to clear this out and make sure that your Lothar isn't vulnerable to something like Eviscerate.
Okay.
And he's gotten a Ruby and Egg to protect himself from really large AoE, and he's still putting a lot of pressure on him. He's got 6 points of burst in his hand. I don't see Lothar really getting out of this situation. I mean, this is looking really bad for him.
This is one of those scenarios where we've seen in previous games, rogues, they use their mana efficient spells and just really efficient minions like Violet Teacher to swarm the board and get an early game advantage. Then they draw sprints to refill their hand. Well, this game turned out the exact opposite. Lothar drew both sprints early on. He couldn't put any pressure on the board. He couldn't take the tempo advantage. And now he can't even play sprint because he's so far behind.
Looks to me like Fan of Knives is going to be the lead here. And with the intent to eviscerate the Slotheb. And maybe even something as desperate as Southsea Deckhand into Voidwalker here. But he can't afford to be taking... I don't think he can afford to be taking another 5 damage from the Slotheb.
Yeah. What Lothar really needs right now is... he needs a preparation. He needs the tempo back, and the only way to get it back is with cards.
Oh, look at this. This is actually really interesting. So this is going to save his Fan of Knives and his Eviscerate. And he's going to use the Southsea Deckhand to take out this Lotheb instead. And he's actually going to eviscerate this Mistress of Pain.
That was actually really nice. It's not what you really wanted, because you don't really want to use your Tinker's Sharpsword Oil to kill off minions. But I think in this particular scenario, it was okay. Lothar did what he had to with the cards that he was dealt.
Yeah, I imagine this is going to be power overwhelming from Xixo here too, just to start pushing pressure out. Wow, he's actually not going to power overwhelming here, and the reason he doesn't is, I'm sure, in fear of Blade Flurry.
Yeah, if you power overwhelming, he gets a 4/4, which is an exact contention with the 4/1 weapon that the rogue has right now.
So Sprint's going to be coming out for Lothar. It's maybe getting closer to a recovery turn now. Gets both Blade Flurries, gets Antique Healbot. That's a really crucial card right now, and he's not facing a ton of pressure this turn.
Yeah, unfortunately, all the cards that he's drawn are not really too playable. I guess he's considering Blade Flurry, but that just puts more damage on the board.
I don't think he really has to do anything.
Yeah, I think you just pass right now, but Lothar might he's maybe taking a page out of the book of his teammate Life Coach and just considering all his options for the next turn on this turn.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to have a ton of stuff to do next turn, so it's good for him to be thinking. The other thing, too, is this doesn't give away too much information to your opponent about what should be going on. So Void Caller gets drawn. I actually don't know if you... I guess Void Caller is going to be fine here. And he's just going to Dark Bomb face to get more pressure out.
And that definitely sets up lethal.
Oh, geez. That backstab is actually pretty crucial right now. That's going to open his Blade Flurry to clear this entire board. He's going to have to deal with what gets summoned from the Void Walker, but he's got a sap to do it.
Mm-hmm. So he has to plan out his turn very well. Again, unfortunately, he doesn't have a preparation, which would make things a lot easier. Lothar, essentially, in order to survive, he has to clear the board, or Power Overwhelming, which is deal too much damage. Power Overwhelming, Hellfire, no matter what is left on the board, unless it's something like a Nerubian Egg, will be lethal. He can also just sap the Void Walker. Actually, I like this a bit better.
Yeah, I like post sap.
Yeah, Blade Flurry and then sap whatever gets summoned. This also gives you more information about what's in your opponent's hand.
He's Jiraxis to the board, so almost certainly gonna be a sap on that. But now here's a question: do you anti-Keelbot sap? Do you Violet Teacher sap, or do you Azure Drake sap?
Lothar's gonna go with the safer option, I guess. He's seen his opponent was just really aggressive last turn, but I think if Lothar, if he knew more about Xixo's deck, he probably might have known that there's not that much that Xixo could. Whoa, actually no sap.
I'm pretty surprised by the no sap here, but I can see why he's doing it. He doesn't want to have to face down Jiraxis, I think, in the hero form, and instead is just kind of okay with the fact that this 314 is on board.
I don't know. I don't like that as much, because if you're facing off against Jiraxis, your opponent's only gonna have max 15 HP, and as a rogue player, I think you're perfectly okay with that.
It's down to 14, but there's no more South Sea deckhand left, so just gonna put 5 to the face, and I mean this is a lot of pressure that Xixo is putting on right now. And second Blade Flurry's in hand, but it's not quite enough right now. He can play Azure Drake and Blade Flurry, and then he can prep out the sap to take care of Jiraxis, or he can choose to eat 3 more damage from it. But he can't keep eating damage from this Jiraxis. He's only got 8 points of health left.
Yeah, again, this not using sap the previous turn is really coming to bite him in the ass, because without a minion on the board, there's so many Warlock cards that can't be used. He wouldn't be able to use Abusive Sergeant, Power Overwhelming. Shadow Flame would get much less value, and also Defender of Argus wouldn't be able to use it for the maximum amount of value. So choosing to not sap Jiraxis is really hurting him. He basically 5 additional damage was done to Lothar's face the previous turn, and even though he was playing kind of safe with the anti-heal bot, he was playing at the same time very unsafe by not sapping the Jiraxis.
Yeah. Also, if he had Fan of Knives this turn, he'd be able to just Azure Drake Fan of Knives. Wow, he's actually going to prep Sprint here.
Yes, he doesn't see anything in his hand that looks very nice.
It's a backstab, gets a Shiv. So, wow, he picks up Earthring Farseer too. That's actually a pretty good one. Backstab's going to be on the Big Game Hunter. Shiv's going to be on this 2-1. And it looks like now he's going to go ahead and sap this Jiraxis. So 5 extra points of damage taken, but he's back up to 11, and he's kind of stabilizing this board position. I mean, he's got a pretty enormous amount of card advantage, and he's actually got the favor on board right now.
Yeah, Lothar didn't draw the preparations early on, but we can see with those preparations, he's just done so much work. Xixo, he does have the option to play Jiraxis, but I think he's going to be very scared of the fact that he knows he's facing a rogue, of course, and the rogue always has the Tinker Sharp Sword up plus all those eviscerates.
Yeah, this Power Overwhelming is a really big indicator that Sharp Sword Oil is exactly what he's afraid of. And when your opponent's drawn 8 extra cards just from sprints, it's something that has to be on your mind. It would have gotten drawn too. So really heads up play there from Xixo to make sure that he's doing everything he can to keep that Tinker Oil from making a gigantic impact. It actually would have been lethal this turn too.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So many options.
It's still pretty close actually. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He's if he had one of those preparations left, this would have been lethal this turn.
But now I think Lothar is just gonna refill some minions. He might considering eviscerating, but he also might consider saving the Eviscerate for lethal. I kind of like getting rid of this Earthen Ring Farseer, but what are you giving up to do that? Just fewer minions on the board. Again, like Warlock is a deck that just has so many things that can buff up minions already on the board. So Lothar was punished last turn for that. Is he gonna go make the same line of play where he just ignores the opponent's side of the board altogether?
I'd like to see him play Violet Teacher and Eviscerate this turn. And I'd like to see the Antwood Van Cleave come out afterwards. But there's still a lot of merit to Azure Drake. And it looks to me like it's going to be Eviscerate and Van Cleave now. So it's still 10 points of power being put on the board. And this is looking pretty bad for Xixo now. That is not the draw he wants to see, and that's going to be okay, but I still think he's just dead after this. So he's going to go up to 18, he's got 10 points of damage, he's facing down. Yeah, this is going to be lethal. And Lothar's drawn basically his entire deck at this point.
Yeah, I think Xixo knows that it's probably lethal as well. Lothar's drawn like 28 cards.
It's not lethal yet because he does have to land the Tinker Oil in the right order. So like if he misses, like the Tinker Sharpsword Oil could still hit whatever minion he chooses to play, so that way he can combo it.
I think you do have to use the SI.
Actually, no, he doesn't. He just puts the Tinker Oil on the dagger, attacks for 10, attacks for 4, and Blade Flurries.
Oh, duh. Yeah,
oh my gosh.
That's 4 from the dagger, 5 from Blade Flurry. That's 9 plus 10 on the board. It's 19 damage.
Yeah, so he just says lethal. He's thinking about how the combo works. He's actually being distracted by the fact that you need to combo Tinker Sharpsword Oil so often that he's being blinded by the fact that he just got lethal, using it as like a pseudo deadly poison. Yep, so Lothar, he's not going to spot this one. I don't think it matters too much though. Like Lothar's going to shut it out anyway. He might have spotted this actually. Nope. So he's going to go with Lothar here. So Lothar ends up missing lethal this turn, but I'm pretty sure it's inconsequential at this point. All his 6 of spells are going to cost just too much, and like, what does he do to get out of this situation? He's basically just in the same board position he was just in. It's just too much stuff to deal with.
Okay. Nerubian Egg is drawn, but Xixo knows that doesn't really stop lethal. Xixo knows he probably has a Tinker Sharpsword Oil in his hand right now because, again, Rogue's drawn 29 out of 30 cards, so unless Lothar is very unlucky, that's probably the case.
Wow.
Xixo just gives up.
Yep, so Warlock not able to close this game out. Lothar, the extra heals that were included in his deck, I think really made a big impact on how this game panned out. You know, having an antique heal bot instead of having something like a second Earthen Ring Farseer, the extra 5 health, I think really made a big difference in that game.
Yeah, Lothar was just under so much pressure pretty much the entire game, but he was able to come back with specific rogue cards that were able to tempo his opponent out. Xixo just put a lot of minions on the board that were like 1/3s, 1/4s, not that threatening, whereas something like Blade Flurry came down and just wiped the entire board out, getting something like 1 for 5 value.
Yeah, I mean, that's just such a big, enormous spot to be in. The other thing, too, is that Lothar got to cast his second Sprint that game, which this deck plays 2 copies of Sprint just because it wants to draw a copy of Sprint, not because it needs 2 copies of Sprint. It's actually kind of like sacrificing one of its cards. But in that game, Lothar got to utilize the second Sprint, which is something I think it's pretty rare when you take all things into consideration. Usually, you'll just have enough damage to push through, but he's having to fight for the board presence for such a large portion of that game that he needed the second Sprint just to find the right combinations of cards to get the job done.
Oh yeah, and now Xixo, will he queue up the Demon Lock deck again? I think at this point, to be honest, it doesn't really matter. Lothar still has the Druid left, and Xixo will have to go through the Druid with the remainder of his decks.
Yeah.
Actually, it's actually really sad that Xixo hasn't been able to show more of his decks, because as we said before, Xixo submitted quote-unquote random decks to this tournament. Random EU decks to the tournament, so I kind of want to see what his definition of random decks is. Or
that RNG. That may be why he's choosing to play Demon Lock so often versus his other 2 decks. He just looks at him, he's like, yeah. Maybe he was actually like random card battling someone and accidentally submitted his random card battle decks.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you're down 0-2 right now, so there's a very little chance of winning. And if you win anyway, you're going to have to show all 3 decks anyway, so might as well play like the quote-unquote more joke decks, right?
Well, sort of. I mean, you might as well play the deck that also kind of, it gives your opponent like information about what you're playing, but I'm not sure it really matters that much. Again, like he's going to have to win with this Warlock deck regardless. Mm-hmm. He can't just like 3-0 with one of his other 2 decks. And if they're truly random decks, I think you want to try to get a win on the board with Steven Lock, just not get 3-0'd if you really have that bad attacks for your other two.
You know, Xixo is known for playing things like Fugen and Stalag in his Druid. So, like, if we see that might have been, like, even on purpose.
When Nax first came out, he was playing Fugen and Stalag and Zoo, and he had a copy of Baron Rivendare in there, and I was watching his stream. He got 2 Thaddeus on the board. Well, I'm sorry, 4 Thaddeus on the board in one turn from having both Fugen and Stalag out, and then he played Baron Rivendare and ran both the minions into his opponent's guys and got 4 Thaddeus from. I think it's the only time I've actually ever seen that happen.
Yeah, there's I've seen it on stream a lot where like his opponents they see Fugen and Stalag and they've never seen those cards before, so they play wrong against it. Like the Fugen and Stalag are on the board, so like the opponent silences Fugen, then kills Stalag, and they're like, oh, oops.
Whoops, that's not the way you want to do that one. He's going to go with Druid here, and when you see Zombie Chow and Harrison Jones, I think this is going to be a little bit closer to a ramp style, but it could be just the fact that he's including Zombie Chow in here to help pop against mirror entities as well. We mentioned that earlier, like how powerful popping a mirror entity with Zombie Chow can be. We saw Nyria had to pop one with an Ancient of Lore, and that's just like not the situation he wanted to be in. He just barely pulled that one out. I don't even know how he won that game. It was crazy the way that one ended up happening. He's gonna mulligan Zombie Chow here too, so really digging for threats.
Yeah, I've been listening to Dog stream a lot, and his rationale for just never keeping Zombie Chow in this in the mirror is that you pretty much only want Innervates and Wild Growths in your opening hand, because those are the cards that going to have the biggest impact in the Druid mirror. Zombie Chow on turn 1, probably not the most impactful thing in the world, especially when every other Druid minion just has so much health and so much attack. The Zombie Chow will effectively add like it's effectively a 2 damage spell, or it trades for Wrath in the best case scenario.
Yeah, just gonna be hero powers, basically from both sides. Turn 1 Shade, I think, is one of those fantastic starts you're looking for, especially when you can follow that with a Coin Shade. Coin really making a big difference, and he picks up second Innervate.
Yeah, this is beginning to look really bad for Xixo. Outside of Wild Growth starts, these are pretty much the best starts you can get as Druid, especially in the Druid mirror where tempo is pretty much everything.
Through the Claw gets down.
That's kind of annoying.
Yeah, it's kind of annoying, but I don't think you're really too worried about it when you have 2 Growing Shades. And you also have a Sludge Belcher to help fight against this Druid of the Claw too.
Yeah, you don't even need to deal with this Druid of the Claw, really. Just let them grow, and at some point in the future, you will draw Force of Nature and Savage Roar, and you can just win right off the bat there.
I think I'd like to see him integrate out this Sludge Belcher.
I think he's considering not doing it because he really doesn't have any other options in coming turns. But yeah, I like innervating it out too, just putting more pressure on the board. Getting 2 innervate plays in your opening turns, especially if you have also 2 shades, is just so strong.
The other thing too is that Xixo's not going to be thrilled to attack into this Sludge Belcher with his Druid of the Claw. So it's likely that this Sludge Belcher, not only it's helping you get board presence there, but it's also helping stave off a lot of potential damage that you could be facing. And again, with the shades down, just basically all he needs to do is extend the game duration. The longer the game goes, I think the better chance he has to win.
Could this just be a Savage Roar turn?
It definitely could be, but I think I'd like to see him save it still. The one thing he definitely doesn't want to see is a Doomsayer pop out of that piloted shredder, I think.
Oh, certainly not. Yeah, if you don't go for Savage Roar there's just so many awkward plays. Like Swipe doesn't do that much, to be honest. I guess you could swipe the Pilot Shredder and then attack into the Druid of the Claw with your Shade. And then with the minions left on the board, you can even clear a Doomsayer if that's what pops out of the Pilot Shredder. And it looks like a pretty favorable situation.
If you choose a Savage Roar here, do you just unveil the shades?
Yeah, definitely, I think.
Yeah,
I want to get the most value out of the Savage Roar as much as possible. Okay, so he chooses a swipe play that doesn't reveal either of his shades.
Which is the one that I think that I would have gone with too. Xixo, not much choice. He needs to dig with this Wrath. Look to find something. Back-to-back Keepers of the Grove. So no play here from Xixo.
Yeah, just maybe this is what he means by like random decks where he has both a Ragnaros and a Dr. Boom. But I have to say, like, these decks aren't as random as I had expected them to be. I was expecting like I don't know, like what's a card that nobody uses? Like double piloted Sky Golem and Druid with double with Sylvanas and Karen and just all many 6-drops. I don't know.
Well, everything we've seen right now is
so standard.
Well, right now it's sort of Ragnaros is a little bit. I feel like it's a little out of place in Druid right now, but we haven't seen the whole deck yet. So I think if for Xixo's sake, I'm gonna hope we don't see the entire deck. So Savage Roar's just gonna be played here, and it's gonna fetch a Direwolf Alpha. So it's no good right now. Yeah, I mean, he's just going to start unveiling shades and going for face. And that is a ton of damage that was just put through. Xixo's already in combo range. He did see a Savage Roar, though, so I think he's pretty happy with that. Draws Wild Growth on turn 6, which is probably the worst possible turn to draw it, I imagine.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Turn 6, turn 7, definitely not where you want to Wild Growth.
You can just
but actually,
pain.
he actually could consider Wild Growthing now, just so his Ragnaros will be playable in the next turn, and he'll have more of a potential to snipe up this other shade on the following turn.
Yeah, it's definitely what he got to do, but he's going down to 8 to do it. And so he's just falling so low. He's just going to be in Force of Nature range pretty soon. Oh my gosh! And Sylvanas gets drawn.
Yes, Sylvanas will just shut out Ragnaros.
Just right on time. Just why not? So 6 more damage to face. He's down to 8, and Force of Nature is not going to help him climb back into this one. And I got to believe that this deal is sealed right now.
Yep, unfortunately, Xixo, he didn't bring the correct decks that he wanted to bring to this tournament, and it looks like he will be indeed punished for that.
Yeah, Ragnaros doesn't really strike me as a 6-0 kind of card. 8 mana is just... I don't think I've ever seen him play an 8 mana minion before this.
I have seen him play it on stream. So it might just be like one of the cards that he just randomly plays on stream, but he doesn't really bring to tournaments.
Yeah, that's going to do it. Lothar's going to 3-0, 6-0 now. And man, have we been seeing 3-0s today. They are just crashing through. This is probably the biggest blowout game I think that we've seen all tournament long so far.
Yeah, I mean,